Not too long ago, I resigned myself to a full week of nothing but editing while making the last episode of the Monster Hunter Academy, which, if you haven't checked out by now, please do. I worked really hard on it. But in such a situation, I did what I always do, and I booted up the background noise playlist. We all have our own version of this, at least I imagine, and just in case you're curious, here are some creators that occupy mine. And while I was editing, a video popped up from the very well-known and legendary Ben Yahtzee Croshaw. I've been a big fan of this guy for years, and just the semi-ramblematic series alone, I have binged way more than I care to admit. Listening to his insights and the dissections of video game culture in so many aspects in such a clear and comedic way, sprinkled in with an editing style that is honestly just timeless, is a great way to keep my mind running. But the reason that I am making this video is, well, it's in the title, which I do hope you read, but just in case, I don't think it's an understatement or even an exaggeration to say that whatever you are into, there is at least one game out there that will perfectly match your tastes. And then, to add even more complexity on top of that, whatever interests you may have then most certainly been made in multiple of the many flavors of video games, whether it be real-time strategies, JRPGs, shooters, MOBAs, you name it, it's likely out there. Now, because of this, it can lead to a very singular situation, in that you find a game that feels tailor-made for you, but just so happens to be made in a genre that you just don't enjoy. Now, this is a faultless situation. The game isn't at fault for the way it's built, and you're not at fault for your unique taste in video games, as again, it's all subjective. And while I do believe Yahtzee's statement in that the essence of enjoying a game lies in the playing of it, I also know there is plenty of wiggle room in that statement. But thankfully, we have multiple means of experiencing a wide variety of video games without actually needing to play them. That's still funny to think about. So a fair and really fun question that I encourage you guys to think about or even ask your friends is this: what are the video games you enjoy but don't play? Now, being what many have deemed to call a YouTuber, I am bound to not only answer this question, but to do so in video form, so that way my opinion remains immortalized on the internet. And you've made it this far, so now you're bound to finish watching this video, and no, that's not a request. So the first game that almost immediately came to mind when thinking of this very question while I originally watched this video was Hunt Showdown 1896. I'm starting off with this specific game for a few reasons. Chief among them is that it was honestly the first game that came to mind when presented with the question. My second reason is that this is a game that meets so many of my credentials the more I look at it. Before listing said credentials though, a brief synopsis of the game for anyone who might not know. The Hunt Showdown is an extraction shooter with elements of simultaneous PvE and PvP. It takes place in a large map of the Louisiana Bayou, where an eldritch entity simply referred to as the Sculptor has wreaked havoc upon its inhabitants, corrupting both the townsfolk and wildlife into monsters. Your part in all of this is playing as a hunter of the AHA, and are sent in to purge these creatures by any means you deem fit. Now, from this description, I'd forgive you for expecting a Left 4 Dead style horde shooter, but no. The map is full of enemies, yes, but you're after the source of the corruption. This source takes the form of one or often two of what is essentially this game's rogue gallery of bounties, which all look grotesquely amazing. Each of these bosses has their own unique set of strengths and weaknesses you need to keep in mind if you want to bring them down and claim your bounty. But as if being tasked to hunt down these targets, whether solo or on a team, wasn't difficult enough, you have to remember this: you're not the only one they sent in to purge these beasts. And what makes things even trickier for you is that this game does not reward the one who killed the bounty, but the ones who make it out alive with the proof that it's dead. And upon killing any of these nightmarish creatures, you then have to banish them, which takes just agonizingly long enough to make you nervous at even the slightest noise you hear outside, but it also shoots a beacon into the sky, letting every other hunter know exactly where you are. So now the game changes. It's now your job to make it out alive and claim your prize, or become another hunter's bounty. The sense of horror and tension this brings is genuinely heart-pumping, and only adds to the already oppressive and heavy atmosphere. But for anyone that does know this game, you know that's not the only reason. This game prides itself on the quality of its sound design, and it is top-notch. Sound is your greatest ally and worst enemy in this game. Dogs barking, giving away your location to both players and the enemies, or even gunfire traveling through the air impressively realistically, allowing you to track down trigger-happy hunters. And that's just covering the standard gameplay loop. I am a big fan of so many other aspects of this game. Its art style in-game and the assets are legendary. If you haven't seen the animations of the various perks and/or traits, honestly, please do. They are so good. The monsters are grotesque and fun to fight, factoring in certain weaknesses to exploit, and the lore for each of them and story is just gold dust to me, and I have torn through so much of it. And need I even mention the soundtrack? I am sure after hearing all of this, you're just waiting for my reason for this game being on this list despite hitting so many of my marks. And the reasons are honestly pitifully shallow, but also ones I just can't get over. One reason being a single detail of this game that pushed me just off the line, and that is, should you be killed on a hunt, whether by the monsters or other hunters, that character is dead permanently. But what's worse is that all of the equipment they had, which is pretty pricey to get a hold of, is gone with them. This choice I find excellent for heightening the tension of the atmosphere, but for me personally, it's a rattlesnake in my pick and mix for enjoying the gameplay. I know the game is doing this to enforce the idea that your own survival is down to your skills and decision making, and I applaud that, truly I do. And above all, I get it. I get the rush one can obtain from overcoming it all and coming out the other side having proven your mettle, not only to the horrifying monsters, but your fellow hunters. But for me, when I make it all the way to the very end, mere seconds away from extracting, just to be shot down like a target at a county fair, is already so disheartening that I just sit there idly seething. This is entirely a skill issue on my part, and I acknowledge that completely, and I am confident that I can learn to get over this with enough time and research into the game's mechanics, because it's been easily about 3 years since I last played it, not counting getting footage for this video. But as it stands, I've spent way more time reading about and watching this game than I have ever spent playing it. And even still, when presenting that question to friends, this game is still the first that comes to mind, and I think that has to count for something. But it's not the only one, because it's then swiftly followed by our next entry, Final Fantasy XIV. This game stands apart from the first one in one major difference, in that as of making this video, I have yet to actually even play it at all. My justification for this at the time was that up until recently, my PC had about as much memory to spare as a nursing home, so I just wrote it off that until I get my hands on some stronger hardware, I'll leave it on the back burner. Now though that I'm in possession of much better hardware, I still have yet to actually install it. But before diving into my reasons, here's a brief summary for anyone that might not know this game. Final Fantasy XIV is a juggernaut of an MMORPG that isn't that one. It takes place in the world of Eorzea, a truly diverse and expansive world filled with all kinds of creatures and magical entities. Upon starting your journey, you can make a character from a wide variety of races this game provides. Once you've made your character up to your ever-diverse array of tastes, you then choose your job. These functions the same as your class in any other RPG, such as Paladins are tanks, the White Mage specializes in healing, and DPS gets roles for melee, physical range, and magical ranged attacks. Fair enough. Venturing across this truly massive world, fighting your way through a wide variety of enemies ranging from ladybugs to dragons, and then Dragon God. Naturally. Now I want you to know I skimmed literal years worth of context and content in that summary. And what hurts putting this game on this list is that this game is so far up my street that I need to clamp it. It goes without saying that I'm a big fantasy lover. Shocker, I'm sure. But the utterly beautiful visual style of the Final Fantasy franchise is one that has endured through the tests of time with near unmatched range in said styles. Truly, it's to be marveled at. And additionally, I'm a big fan of the Final Fantasy franchise as games, despite only really having played 2 and a bit of them. But in each one, I eat it up. The summons, whether returning or brand new, the music hits every range of emotion possible, and the lore, gods above. I can't thank the Final Fantasy Union enough for just existing, and has let me binge hours of gorgeous content while editing. Truly, go watch their stuff, it's great. And each of these aspects that I love are present and plentiful in Final Fantasy XIV to a degree that can only be described as astonishing. Despite so much going for it, why haven't I actually just pulled the trigger and started playing it? Well, there's a few reasons. The first being that this game gives me what I called for years Witcher 3 paralysis. To define this is when a game presents me with so many games or options and avenues of gameplay that I just become paralyzed with indecision. This isn't a bad thing on the game's part, God no. It's just something that affects me occasionally. I have played The Witcher 3, and it's a phenomenal game, but I can't deny it took me a long time to actually get started with it. Currently feeling the same with Crimson Desert right now, actually. But one key difference there is in this game is, well, it's still going. There are expansions and storylines that are still continuing even over a decade later, and that can only be described as an incredibly impressive achievement. Truly well done. But that makes the game to me about as easy to get into as lava. This is further then compounded by the fact that I have seen so many videos and multiple articles of longtime players saying that it's far too late for new players to get into the game in any worthwhile way. But I've also heard just as many saying the opposite. And given the scale of this game, I think I genuinely don't have the time to sink what seems to be the minimum required amount to enjoy this game to its fullest extent. Now, I don't think it's impossible to get into this game, I don't. I've even put a good amount of time into Destiny 2 years after it started. Pretty sure it was around the Lightfall expansion I started playing. Speaking of, how is Destiny 2 doing these days? Moving on. But even if I never actually get into Final Fantasy XIV, I will continue to enjoy its lore, the cinematics, which are just superb, by the way, and that freaking music. Hot damn. Now, before getting into my last entry on this list, I have a few games that I wanted to mention but didn't want to give them a full entry, so let's quickfire them. The Yakuza series. My god, these games are cornerstones of this entire industry, mastering the balance of dead serious and completely ridiculous in a seamless ebb and flow, akin to a hurricane where everything somehow ends up exactly where it needs to be. However, in saying that, I have tried playing them, but I just prefer watching people play them. A prime example is this video. I just don't get the urge to play them. They don't ignite that in me. And honestly, I fought with that for a while, and that's the best answer you're gonna get out of me. Dead by Daylight. Christ, so many aspects of this game confuse and intrigue me all at the same time. I'm not going to be going over them just to save time, but my respect for what this game has done for classic horror icons in keeping them in the public zeitgeist when so many of them are so beyond their prime is honestly excellent. It's truly good work, and I can only applaud Behavior Interactive for this. Furthermore, their original creations are hauntingly impressive. But one thing I noticed, when the Attack on Titan event trailer dropped not long ago, I swiftly went to the wiki to check up on any updates I had missed, knowing full well I wasn't even going to even consider playing it myself. And just in case you're curious, despite knowing absolutely nothing about the gameplay, these are the killers I would play. Oh, the comments are going to be interesting on this one. Now we get into the final nail in the coffin of my credibility on the internet. The final game I really like, but don't play is Subnautica. This game has gnawed at the back of my head for years. And my God above, I wanted to dive into it. This game is a marvel in what it sets out to do and has garnered all the success it rightfully deserves. Does anyone else remember that time on YouTube where you couldn't go more than 10 minutes without being recommended a playthrough of this game, even if it was from YouTubers you'd never even heard of? That's how big this game was and still is. But if by some miracle you do not know about this game, first off, let me welcome you into the light of the modern world. I hope that rock you've been under was very comfortable at least. Subnautica, in its simplest form, is an underwater survival game with elements of crafting and base building. You start the game surrounded by nothing but water, both your greatest lifeline to surviving on this planet and what will kill you the instant you get too comfortable with it. And the game takes full advantage of this setting, creating a believable ecosystem full of all kinds of creatures, from the adorable that I would overthrow a nation for, to that. And across 2 games and a DLC, the range of leviathans they have made scratches that monster-loving itch that burrowed its way into my brain as a child and never left. I remember thinking years ago that this game was essentially Minecraft but without the land.
Please help me.
Where you craft this to get more of that, which allows you to make even more of this to dive deeper to get more of that to craft more stuff. Wash, rinse, repeat. Having no real direction or story and kinda just a challenge to survive as long as you can. But no, there is in fact a plot. Couldn't tell you a single thing about what it is though, because I'm writing this at 2 AM, so research be damned. It all sounds pretty good. And largely, I would agree it is. So what is it that makes me not want to play this game despite being so fond of what it does? Well, this. Yeah, despite my adoration for reading about our oceans, of which we still know so frighteningly little about, I do it feverishly. Stories tied to it of ships sunk in battle or in woeful tragedies, to the creatures within it and all sorts. How could you not love it? It's an entire world right beneath us. And to sufficiently illustrate my thought process when thinking of this game, here's a question that I've been asked more than once and asked just as often. Would you rather be trapped or lost in the depths of space or in the bottom of the ocean? My answer to this question has remained the same for years. We have looked light years into the great beyond. And while we have still only seen a mere fraction of it all, and even then that's overselling it, the oceans are right there, and we have no idea what's in them. I will always be fascinated by it, but strictly from a distance. That kind of got away from me there a little bit, didn't it? So, if you decided to skip ahead, I'll summarize it with this. This game frightens me to my core despite its appearances. And that's it. I will watch and consume hours upon hours of content about it, but it's not for me. Also, I don't like crafting and base building games. They're just not for me. I will say though, I will be buying Subnautica 2 entirely just to be part of the reason why Crafton's pockets hurt just a little bit more, because that puts one hell of a smile on my face. And so, that's my incredibly long-winded answer to a fairly simple question. But as any good YouTuber does, I now put it to all of you. Please, flood the comments with games that you do enjoy, but have no intention of actually playing. Or, if you don't want to do that, feel free to tell me in the comments that I'm just bad at video games. I look forward to reading them. But until then, guys, good hunting.